Tarrant County Master Gardener Association has partnered with the Tarrant Regional Water District to encourage water conservation. TRWD maintains 4 area lakes and pipelines needed to provide surface water to local water treatment plants so they can clean that water to meet drinking standards for our communities. There are currently 2.3 million people living in Tarrant County, and this is expected to double over the next 50 years. At SaveTarrantWater.com, you can sign up for free weekly watering advice custom to your location. There's also an event calendar where you can find information about future classes and workshops. So be sure and check out SaveTarrantWater.com to sign up for their free services.
Hi everybody, I'm Toni Moorehead, and I'm a Tarrant County Master Gardener and a Texas Certified Landscape Professional. And today we're going to show you some tips on pruning. We're going to go over shrubs, perennials, ornamental grasses, a tree branch or so. And anyway, first of all though, I would like to show you some of the tools that I like to use. My favorite, always on my hip, is my Velcro pruners. So love those. And I like to use Fisker's brand as well. These are shears. I'll be showing you using these a lot today. And then I also like the Fisker's brand, and I'm not a brand specific, but I just like these. These are very well used, but these are loppers for cutting larger stems. So, and then I also have a little folding saw for pruning tree branches or larger, even larger shrubs if necessary. So those are probably all my favorites right there. So also I wanted to show you some sharpeners that I use. These are called Easy Lap, and they are diamond sharpeners. So I'll just show you a really quick little demonstration on how to do that. On your pruning blade, there's a beveled side and there's a flat side. So you just take the sharpener edge there and you go on that beveled edge. And when you use the diamond sharpeners, you can kind of go in any direction you want to go. You don't have to all just go one way, but just go like that at that same bevel, just like that. And then you come over onto the flat side and just kind of get off any burrs that are on there, just to smooth that out. And that should give you a nice sharp edge. And you can do that on the shears as well. Same thing, beveled edge right there. Just go around any direction in that same slant. Then you come over to the flat side and just get off any of the burrs. Okay. Ready? Let's get going. Okay, the first shrub we're going to do is, this is a Yaupon holly, and I just want to instill some confidence in you that you can prune this shrub very severely if needed. Ideally, if they are spaced appropriately and 45 to 48 inches on center, so center of shrub to center of shrub. If you place your plants that way from the get-go, then your pruning is kept to a minimum. So anyway, I'll just get going on this. This is how I do it. I just come in here and kind of determine the height that I want. So I just come in and cut that off. And even if you're cutting a lot of leaves off, don't let that scare you. With hollies, they can be pruned severely. So just kind of get the height that you want. And then what I do is I start going down at that angle. I don't ever cut in at the bottom coming in, back in toward the shrub. I always want to maintain a domed shape. So now what I do is I start working my way around the shrub with that angle. And as you're working your way around, when you're looking down, you're trying to maintain a round shape. So if I'm confusing you by saying don't cut in at the bottom, I'm just going to trim off these little stragglers out here, but I'm not actually coming in and cutting in there. I hope that makes sense. So you can see how I've just maintained that dome shape, and all of this will fill right back in. And you can just keep going around kind of tweaking it to get as meticulous as you want. So I've taken off, oh, I don't know, 4 or 6 inches or so, because you anticipate how much the plant will grow over the season. And I usually only prune them once. You can go back and do a tidy up in the fall, but it's not necessary if you do this one hard prune in February. So, Neil Sperry used to say, think about an egg on its side as opposed to an egg standing up. And his point was, you want wider than tall. So I told a client that one time, and they literally pruned every shrub in the shape of an egg. And I was like, okay, maybe I won't use that anymore. So I've heard someone use an illustration of an umbrella. If you could take this handle off an umbrella and set it down over it, that's the shape you're going for. The next shrub we're going to prune is an abelia. Now there are lots of varieties of abelia. There are some that will grow 6 to 8 feet tall and wide. There are some of the newer varieties that stay more compact at about 3 feet tall and wide. This particular variety, it's either Sherwood or Edward Goucher, one of the two. But regardless, all abelias tend to put off kind of crazy growth out of the top. So the way to keep them naturally shaped and more compact is to take those taller stems, instead of just pruning them up here at the top, you want to go down into the meat of the shrub, I say, or maybe even close to the ground, because everywhere that you cut, the stem is going to fork. So you want that forking happening way down low as opposed to up at the top of the shrub. So for instance, these stems right here are sticking up and kind of crazy looking. So I'm going to take that and come that way, it will send up new growth down low. So I'm just going to work my way around the shrub and just tidy it up basically. But I want to keep on abelias, I love that free form growth to them. Instead of making them into squares or tight balls like that, just let them maintain that shape, but we're doing it naturally. Again, this one's kind of sticking up. We're going to go down there like that. So I don't know if you can see that. We've just reduced all that craziness, so it just kind of has that naturally weeping shape here. Okay. This is Anthony Water spirea. Lots of different spireas, so it might be a little confusing, but this particular variety, it blooms about May, and this is how I prune it. That keeps it from getting woody, and it will bloom better for you if you'll do that to it every February. There's 2 other varieties, Lime Mound and Gold Mound, that they stay smaller than this, and those I will just give a little haircut to. I don't prune those as severely. And then there's another variety called Bridal Wreath that will grow 6 feet tall and wide, and that one blooms much earlier, so you don't want to do that. Do not do this to Bridal Wreath spirea. That's one where when it's done blooming, because it's a spring bloomer, you prune after it's done blooming if you need to, and it's that technique of just taking the tall old stems and cutting them down at the ground if you need to. You don't have to do that to that shrub. If you've got it sited where it can grow 6 feet tall and wide, leave it be. Okay. All right, this shrub is needlepoint holly. It's very similar to Burford holly, but what I want to impart to you on this is try to get away from hedging with mechanical pruners, because they can tear these large-leaved hollies, And I prefer to prune them by hand with loppers or hand pruners. So I just want to keep a natural shape to these. So let me see if I can show you how I do this. So you can kind of see this little section right here sticking up a little bit taller than the rest of it. So what I want to do is come in and find, it's very easy on this. See, I don't know if you can see right here how there's a little lateral branch coming out, and there's another little lateral branch coming out, and there's another one. You can prune above any one of those lateral points. So I'm going to come here and cut right above that lateral branch right there, and that will force new growth down low, and that way it will keep this section more compact. Right here, I'm going to come here, see these leaves, these are all points of lateral growth as well. You can cut right above a leaf. So I mean, I'm cutting quite a bit off, but that will all fill out down there. Here we go again. I'm just going to cut above a lateral branch that comes out. So I don't like to take shears and just shear the top off, because that's the point of growth. So I like to come in and cut down in. You don't have to cut to the ground with these, but you just come down into the plant a little bit. When you're trying to reduce the overall size, just come in and cut above any lateral branch or leaf, and then you will force growth out. And you can prune these quite severely. Now this needlepoint variety gets 6 to 8 feet tall, which we can allow in this spot, on this tall wall here with no windows. But like for instance, Burford hollies, where you want to keep them about 3 feet tall, you can prune them very severely this time of year and they will respond great. What I like to do is anticipate, choose the height that I want them to be. So if I want them to be 3 feet tall, I'm going to anticipate that they're going to grow 6 inches to a foot. I will cut that much off and anticipate that growth. It will come, so that way when the new growth comes over that season, it will be at the height that I want it to be. Does that make sense? Because if I just snip off the top like that, and now it grows 6 inches to a foot, now it's 4 feet tall, and I really want to keep it at 3. So if you anticipate the growth, cut down to that point, then when it grows back, it's at the height that you want to maintain. So if you have a Burford or a needlepoint, that type of a holly, that you have allowed to grow really tall, it's covering your windows, but if it were kept at 3 feet, it would be fine. So I just want to encourage you and give you the confidence that you can cut that shrub for sure 1/3 of its height, or as much as down to a half of the height. Even if you're cutting off every single leaf, if you can do it with loppers, I'm telling you, it will come back. And then that's called a restorative prune, where you're just trying to get the shrub back into shape. Say you've been hedging it into meatballs all these years and you want to let it just grow back out naturally. Cut it really hard this time of year, late January, early February, and it will force growth down low, and it will keep that plant compact and very full growth. So these are Burford hollies here, and I like to keep these at about 3 feet tall or so, but I like them to have that natural shape. I don't want to come in here with a hedge trimmer and make these into flat-topped rectangles. So I prune these by hand with loppers, just like the needlepoint that we were showing, but these I want to keep shorter. So again, I come in here and you just kind of feel around till you can find a branch you can cut off. I'm anticipating they're going to grow 6 inches to a foot. So I'm going to come in here and cut that off, and then just keep working my way around. Sometimes I can just use hand pruners. I'm just going to go down in deep though. See how much I'm cutting off? Just kind of work your way around. And let me just show you on this, if you're worried about finding that lateral branch, every leaf is considered a lateral that will push out growth. So just cut anywhere above any of those. You can see how this is sticking so far into there. I'm going to cut all that back. So a little labor intensive, but once a year. Just do it once a year. Because if you use hedge trimmers and you're only trimming off these top couple inches, that's the only place you're going to get growth, and then it will stop growing down into the interior of the plant. So you have a bunch of bare you end with a bunch of bare stems and just growth at the top few inches. So what if you pull these plants apart, you can see growth way down in deep, because I do this method of cutting down in there and you know, down at least 6 inches to a foot every February. And then in the fall, they will get an erratic stem that comes up here and there, and you can just snip on those. You don't have to do this severe pruning at that point. But so it is maybe twice a year, but the second pruning is very light. Again, so you can kind of see the difference between this height and down here, anticipating they will grow up to here, and that height is great. If you have, again, allowed these to grow up to here and now they're covering windows, or if they've been hedged in squares for years, you can come in with loppers and cut them down. Just pick the height a little bit below where you want them to be ultimately, take loppers and just chop them all off, and they will come right back out. When I show the video, I show a before and after of where I've had to do that restorative type of pruning, and it's quite severe, but you don't do that every year. So I think that kind of shows just the difference in the height here as opposed to what I just pruned. Shape them, and actually I do that. I have Rose Creek, and I do that with mine. I actually shape them in a dome shape, just like the Yopons, the first cut of the year, and then I leave them alone. These here are brand new from last fall, so I'm going to let them grow a little bit. Yeah. Okay, this is, I think, a really good example to show. Okay, now I'm going to talk about pruning Nandinas, and all Nandinas are pruned the same way, whether it's the tall Nandina domestica or this is a variety called Firepower, which looks very similar to Nana, and they're all pruned the same. We never want to hedge a Nandina. We take the tallest cane, they're called, and prune that down to the ground. So can you see that this one little stem right here is taller than the rest of the plant? So what I'm going to do to even up this plant, instead of just snipping it off up here, what we do is take the tallest cane, follow it down to the ground as close as you can get. You just manhandle the shrub and get it down in there. As you can see, all the way down there, I'm going to take this tall stem and I'm going to cut it off all the way down there. And this one here is a little, there we go, we got that. So now that you can see the shrub shape has evened up, we don't have that one tall one right there, but what it does is at the point of that cut is where the new growth is going to come. So the new growth comes down low, it keeps the shrub compact and full. And all Nandinas, Gulfstream, Lemon Lime, Obsession, Compacta, they're all Nandina, the Domestica, the big tall variety, all pruned the same way. And usually you only want to take 1/3 of the shrub per year. You don't cut every single stem that way, just a tall, random tall one, or sometimes as many as 1/3 of the shrub per year. Cut them down to the ground, and you do that every February. That's the only time you have to touch the shrub, and it will stay full and compact. And look at that gorgeous winter color on these Firepowers. Amazing. I love this variety of Nandina. It doesn't berry, it stays very small. Just a great, it handles shady conditions, full sun conditions, you name it, it can take it.
Hold that piece up so they can see the stem and the rest of
So, okay. So here you can see the long stem, how I just made that cut right at the bottom. So it was in there like that, make that cut, take it out, and then you can see how we're just back to a nicely shaped shrub. Sure. This is the tall Nandina domestica, which, you know, is the old-timey tall variety, but the principle is the same. I don't know if you can see, but we have a real tall branch, 2 branches on this that are really tall. So I want those to be a little shorter. So instead of just cutting them off at the top, what I do is follow that cane all the way down to the ground. Kind of feel your way down there. Figure out which one it is. Let me see here. There we go. This is a challenge. Huh. Let's see. There we go. So I have cut that one, tall stem, down low. So I remove the height, and then the new growth pushes off at the bottom and keeps it a little more compact. Same thing right here. I'm going to follow this one down. See if I can find where that one connects. And on these tall ones, I don't worry about getting quite so close to the ground. As long as I get way down closer to the ground, even if it's a foot up, that's fine. And you probably have to use loppers with these because they have such thick lower stems. So all that will bush out back here then and be great. Okay, this is again another Nandina called Gulf Stream. Again, the same principle. I just wanted to illustrate on all the different types. So again, see how this stem just stands up a little bit taller than everything else. Follow that down, just kind of work your way down to find down at the base of the plant, right down there. See if you can see that. And then you will cut it off fairly close to the bottom. Again, this one here is sticking up a little tall. I'm going to come in there and cut that. And yes, the plant does look a little disfigured when you first cut it, but by the time the new growth comes, it will look beautiful and it will keep it fuller and compact that way, as opposed to just snipping it off at the top. It doesn't put any growth down at the bottom, it just puts another little tuft at the top. And when you start doing that to all the stems, then you end up with a bunch of bare stems with little tufts at the top. So this keeps it looking good. So now I'm going to show you how to cut off a low tree branch. I want to show you the 3-step method. The first step is to come out at least 6 inches to a foot from the trunk and make an undercut. So you come in here and just undercut partially. You don't come all the way through. Then you come out a few inches beyond that undercut and you just cut the whole thing off. The reasoning behind that is you want that undercut first in case the weight will tear down the limb. It'll stop at that undercut. Now we come back with our third cut, and it is right at the branch collar, it's called. Usually you can see it's a very defined ridge between the trunk and the branch. So you want to come out just beyond that collar and cut the limb off. You don't want to come out too far. You don't want to come out here and leave a stub because that can't heal. And you don't want to cut in too close into that ridge because you've taken away the healing properties that are in that ridge. So Let me come down here and cut. I'm just coming just to the outside of that ridge. So now you have a nice clean cut. That bark ridge can now heal, or it's actually compartmentalizing this wound, and it will come and cover that cut. Obviously, if you have a chainsaw, it goes much quicker. I would just caution you, if you have large limbs that are up high in a tree, call the professionals, call an arborist in to do that, and don't take chances. If you have to climb on a ladder to prune, you probably should call in some professionals. This is just low growing branches in this parking lot here, so we want to lift them up so that cars are not hitting the branches. Right now we are standing next to a vitex or chase tree. I think they call it Texas lilac because it gets the purple, you'll recognize it, it gets those purple blooms on it in the summertime. The bees love it. Anyway, this is basically a large shrub, but what we do is you can limb it up to make it into an ornamental tree, which is what we've done here, or you could just let it grow as a very large shrub, and very large means 15 feet tall and wide, so just make sure you've got room for it. But what I wanted to show you right now is these straight, we call them water sprouts is what we call them, or these suckers that just come up on the limb. Sometimes they're just straight. So when you want to keep this more as an ornamental tree, they're taking away from that look. So you can either use loppers or hand pruners if they're small enough, and just come in there and cut them off at the trunk just to clean that up. Some of them may be dead already. Some of them, you know, if they're still alive, you want to cut those off. So just cleans up that trunk. Not all trees or shrubs will do that, but some do. So you can just come in and clean it up. Easy, easy. Here's another one. They just have really straight growth to them. We're going to talk about crepe myrtles right now, and to say that you never trim a crepe myrtle is not, or prune, is not necessarily correct. Now, we don't, I want to make it clear, we don't advocate chopping them, you know, cutting all of the branches off and creating those big knuckles at the pruning spot. But wherever you have branches that are crossing and rubbing, one of those needs to go. If you have if you want to keep it as a tree form and you have suckers coming from the bottom, those get pruned. If you want to keep the center cleaned out from having branches coming in toward the center, you can prune those off. But you always want to take them back to where they connect to the next trunk. So I don't know if you can see this here, but I'm going to show you this branch right here. It's coming up, it's going in back toward the center of the tree, and then it's coming back that way. So what I want to do is I just take my loppers. If it's small enough, you can use loppers, and cut that off. I've come all the way back to where it connected to this main branch. I didn't just chop it off randomly. So now it keeps that cleaned out up there, and all the branches are coming up and going out. There's some really little small ones in here. Sometimes you can just knock those off or cut those. Those aren't drastic. There's another one on this one. Same thing. It's coming up, and right up here it's rubbing on the next branch that's coming out. So I'm going to come down here and cut it right at the point where it connected to that other branch and pull it out. Here's another one that is coming up and rubbing on this trunk. So I will come in and cut that out. So those cuts are good to be made so that you keep the tree clean and a pretty branching structure, but again, never topping them, called crepe murder. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to prune an ornamental grass. One tip that I use is a bungee cord, because what you'll do is you can also just use a string, and if you will tie the ornamental grass up, then when you cut it off at the bottom, it's all bound up already. If you don't do that and it's a windy day like we have today, you will have grass clippings all over the place. So this just makes it a little tidier. Can you grab that end right there? And can you see that end? And I will try one more up atop. Let's do one more. Yeah. Okay. Oops.
Oh, sorry.
Here you go.
Did I hit you?
Okay, can you see that? Okay. So then, if you have mechanical hedge trimmers, you can do that. Just come in and slice at the bottom. I don't have one of those today, so I'm just going to again use my shears for this one. So you just come in there. You can't just lop it off at once. You kind of have to take little bites out of it. But with this type of miscanthus grass, it's adagio is the variety, we want to cut that down to about 3 inches tall. Okay, then you can come in and just kind of clean it up. This doesn't have to be super precise because all of the new foliage will grow up and hide all of this.